I guess the real question is, from this point going forward, where are we? And I'm in the opinion, I think Dan shares this with me, that we're a 10x from here.
I think everything changed in the summer. The Larry Fink comments that Bitcoin was a global asset, an important global asset, basically onboarded around $50 to $100 trillion of available capital through equity accounts and brokerage accounts around the world to Bitcoin. For the first time since I had the idea for this fund in the middle of 2019, New York-based financial institutions are interested in talking to me about what we do.
Anthony Scaramucci, founder and managing partner of Skybridge Capital, an alternative asset manager and investment advisor, and Dan Tapiero, CEO and managing partner at 10T Holdings, a growth equity fund focused on mid to late stage digital asset ecosystem companies, are both exceedingly bullish on crypto asset prices as the bull market continues. Tapiero, who has a super bullish $1 trillion price prediction for the digital asset space, notes that BlackRock's interest in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies has dramatically shifted institutional perception in the United States. Until early last year, the cryptocurrency industry was often dismissed as unserious, associated with criminals and directionless youths. This perception changed after the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission approved several spot Bitcoin ETFs earlier this year, with BlackRock's iShares Bitcoin Trust breaking records. Investors have now witnessed the immense opportunities the industry presents, especially compared to traditional assets like stocks and bonds. According to Tapiero, thousands of institutional investors are quickly moving to invest in crypto before they miss the opportunity. He believes even a conservative prediction sees Bitcoin hitting $100,000 per coin during this bull cycle, with a further increase to $350,000 per coin expected during the 2028 to 2029 bull cycle. In their latest interview with OPTO, Scaramucci and Tapiero discussed the impact of the Bitcoin ETFs and their expectations for Bitcoin and other crypto assets in 2024 and beyond. We will bring you clips from this insightful discussion as they share their perspectives on the future of the digital asset space.
There are lots of different opportunities. Obviously, with a hindsight test, Bitcoin is the greatest asset I think that I have seen in my lifetime. I'm sure Dan would agree with me. It could be the greatest asset in history as far as I'm aware of. I guess the real question is, from this point going forward, where are we? And I'm in the opinion, I think Dan shares this with me, that we're a 10x from here. I'm not going to cap a time frame on that because it's very uncertain. There's some volatility, but if you look at adoption rates, and Mr. Tapiero has some wonderful slides that he sometimes shows people about where adoption rates were. Last year, he had us in 1998 in terms of the comparison to Web 1, so I'm assuming we're probably mid 1999 now. It's only a 5-ish% adoption for Bitcoin. And so just imagine if we can get to 20 or 30%. So yeah, greatest asset in history, let's say from 2009 to today. But now the question is this going to outpace NVIDIA and other great assets? I believe it will. And obviously I've staked my reputation and my business on it.
I think everything changed in the summer. The Larry Fink comments that Bitcoin was a global asset, an important global asset, was a big change from what he'd been saying 2 years previously, that Bitcoin was for fraud and money laundering. $10 trillion wealth manager, we all know about it. And of course, he didn't say those comments without knowing, in fact, that there was going to be an ETF and that they were going to be one of the big sponsors. So January 11th, all 11 of those ETFs came out. And that's really been a game changer if you think about looking forward, going forward. You've basically onboarded around $50 to $100 trillion of available capital through equity accounts and brokerage accounts around the world to Bitcoin. I mean, previously you needed to set up a Coinbase account or Kraken or Gemini. Some people weren't really comfortable with that. The entire over age 50 crew, they all have stock accounts. They all have brokers, RIAs. And now they just, can push a button and they own Bitcoin. And so we thought that would be powerful, but it's been a lot more powerful in terms of how it's affected people's mentality in the space. And I tell you this firsthand experience because we have never marketed our funds. We have $1.4 billion AUM now in the 10 T1 RT funds, never marketed directly to U.S. institutions. We have 2 or 3 institutions, but they're through personal contacts of mine. Texas Teachers is a big investor, as is Michigan's pension fund MERS. But we've never marketed to them. For the first time since I had the idea for this fund in the middle of 2019, New York-based financial institutions are interested in talking to me about what we do. And it's very, very interesting. I never had that kind of reverse inquiry. And remarkably, they're actually starting to move quickly, which is almost an oxymoron, a U.S. Institution moving quickly. They get the ETF. They get the interest that their clients are showing through the ETF. Last thing I'll say is that, Bitcoin and Ethereum, I think, are established assets. They're core assets. That's why they will have ETFs. I think the Ethereum ETF is also a big part of the future. The other cryptocurrencies, they're more venture projects. They're more speculative. I think Solana is maybe moving towards becoming a core asset, but it's not there yet. So I'm very bullish when the slowest part of our world, this U.S. institutional world that has been slowest to the game, they're starting now to pick up interest, and I'm seeing it firsthand.
Last week, 3iQ Digital Asset Management, a Canadian investment fund manager, announced that it has successfully filed an application to launch Solana ETFs. If approved, these would be the first Solana-based ETFs in North America. The digital asset management firm tweeted, 3iQ Corporation is pleased to announce that we have submitted a preliminary prospectus for the Solana fund in Canada in relation to an initial public offering. This continues our track record of innovation, and if we receive the necessary regulatory approvals, the fund would be the first Solana exchange-traded product listed in North America. The news was well received by Solana investors, causing a slight recovery in prices due to the expectations of approval. Additionally, the blockchain network achieved a record-breaking milestone in the number of active monthly users. According to recent data from blockchain analytics platform Artemis, Solana has reached an unprecedented milestone of 30 million active addresses, surpassing the previous peak of 25 million active users in 2022. Like Tapiero, Scaramucci also believes Solana will be the next cryptocurrency to get an ETF. In a tweet from last month, he wrote, "We are going to get a Solana ETF. Get ready." During their discussion with OPTO, Tapiero and Scaramucci further explored the impact of Bitcoin ETFs and the rapidly increasing interest in cryptocurrencies among institutional investors in the United States. Here are more clips from their video.
Under the hood, you have other institutions. I mean, I myself have, been involved with that directly. I run the investment committee for an endowment of a school, and I've mentioned this multiple times. And that endowment, we got off zero, which was the, famous Wences Casares rallying point. People in the space know his name. And we went to 1%, and this was an endowment that was $500 million. And we put 1% into Bitcoin and ETH, and then a little bit into a venture fund in the middle of 2019. And that 1%, that 5 million, is well north, let's just say, of 50 million. And so you can see we were, I think, the first high school endowment in the U.S. to invest directly. And I think we were one of the first high schools or colleges to invest directly. And it's had a huge impact. And it was just 1% that we put at risk. That was it. And it's allowed us to outperform many, if not most, of our peers. And I think that the ability of endowments to deal with illiquidity risk is very important. I think the worst thing you can do in this space is to attempt to trade it. Unless you have 20 people working for you and in a 24/7, 365 operation. I mean, I managed a portfolio in the traditional world for over 20 years, with daily mark to market and right there on the firing lines at various hedge funds and my own hedge fund. And, this is 10x more complicated, 10x more difficult. There's 10x the upside, but you have to, be involved in the minutia. Or you can sit back and do what I think you should do, certainly, is own Bitcoin, own Ethereum on a 10-year hold, walk away,
But I feel like Dan and I finally, after 3.5 decades on Wall Street, we finally got the answers to the final exam, our senior year in college or high school, 5 days before the test. Okay, and that's Bitcoin. And so he looks at it probably the exact same way that I'm looking at it, that this is an asset that the world needs. This is an asset that's expanding. You may have seen that the Chinese bank ICBC, the government-owned bank, just put out 2 research reports, one on Bitcoin, one on Ethereum. The bank is owned by Communist China. They're letting you know that they're going to start using and thinking about using these digital assets. Last thing I want to say, which I think is also important for all of this, is that we are still very, very, very early. And what you do when you get older is not when you do when you get younger. When someone gave me a portfolio to run when I was younger, I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I said, oh, I have a portfolio to run. I have a job. I've got to do things in this portfolio to justify my keep. Okay. But as you get older, you look at the portfolio and say, you know what? I'm getting paid not to do anything. I got to sit on my hands, and I've got to convince an endowment like Dan has to, or my retail customers, to please relax, let me handle this, and let's not do anything in these positions. And that's a very hard thing for portfolio managers to do. It was something, frankly, I sucked at in the early part of my career.
According to Tapiero, this is the biggest macro trade of our lives. Institutional investors are set to continue pouring tens of billions of dollars into Bitcoin and soon Ethereum through spot ETFs. Additionally, the Federal Reserve is expected to end its quantitative tightening, kicking off a massive macro and crypto summer. This means steadily higher Bitcoin and crypto asset prices before the year ends as the U.S. government ramps up its efforts ahead of the November elections. Please share your thoughts on Anthony Scaramucci and Dan Tapiero's predictions and outlook for Bitcoin and the entire digital asset space in the comments section below. For more Daily Dose Crypto news, check out these 2 awesome videos on your screen. Click now and we will see you on the next video.